everyone. This is Hua bringing to you today chapter 4 of My Enemy's Daughter. I hope that you are enjoying the story so far. My apologies for a long wait, for I was returning home from vacationing. So here I am back at home, and let us return to Hayden and Lilac and see where today's adventures lead us.
Red eyes, strobe lights moving across the walls. You're looking like a movie star, but I don't know just what you are. Seems like you're type to be on the floor. You're looking for a kind of queen, the baddest one you've ever seen. You're shining bright as crystal, moving like a twister. Ooh, I'm swaying to the hits, boy, loving every disc.
The hall had soft music playing, and when Lilac returned, she found a young woman with blonde hair playing a harp in the corner of the room. Hayden was dining with a lavish table of food, and Juno brought her to him before excusing himself and leaving them alone. Hayden watched her with a gaze she hadn't seen before, and she stood where she was without making any move to sit. Clearing his throat, Hayden said, "Need I pull out your chair?" She made a face. "I thought slaves do not eat with masters." "You're in Silion, not Zion. Here I allow anyone to eat with me at my table. Food is a treasure even I give to those who bear me ill will. No person shall die starving." "Who said anything about dying? I am merely here as a hostage, and as soon as Brack gathers his hunting party together, I shall be saved. I cannot wait to see the look on your face as he rids you once and for all." He smiled and took a gulp of his wine. "You honestly believe he will save you?" "I am the Duchess. Of course he will." "Trapped here within my city walls. You are a new Duchess, and seeing as how old your husband is, I can safely say you are not the first wife he's had, maybe not even the second. What is to say he should take on a new wife simply than to step inside enemy lines?" Lilac pretended that didn't hurt her as she tried to control her emotions. She was a woman, and she didn't know the tactics of war. If she was here, would Brack risk soldier life to rescue her? And what if Hayden was right? What if her husband simply decided to choose another to marry instead of saving her? When she took too long to answer, he laughed and stood up, his eyes sparkling. "Your silence tells me that what I've said has never entered your mind. I am a man, Lilac, and I have waged war for decades. Is one life worth killing thousands?" She ignored his gaze and replied, "I am worth it." Laughing, Hayden said, "You have such high hopes in yourself, Lilac. I am afraid you might find disappointment." He walked to sit down again. "Sit. Join me for dinner and wine. I am sure your belly is aching for some good food." And Lilac slowly walked to sit down beside him, only because she was famished, and if she didn't eat, fainting would be worse than giving in to her pride. She began breaking the small turkey on the plate to eat, and then her eyes shot up at him. "You must be so happy to see me tortured so." "Of course not," Hayden said. "What do you take me for?" He paused, and then he laughed. "Oh, wait. According to you, I am an imbecile." She lowered the drumstick and cleared her throat. "Perhaps a word too harsh for your fine treatment of me right now, but I do have a question for you." "Speak." Although fearful of the answer, she asked anyways. "What if I am not saved? What then?" He raised an eyebrow. "The thought has crossed your mind." "Just now when your voice brought it up. I believe Brack would save me, but you did make a point. To answer you correctly, the man has had 4 wives before me. I am sure another one to add to the list won't hurt him. But if he doesn't save me, where do I belong then?" He leaned forward and his eyes darkened. "Then you become Sea Lion's newest resident." "Which means I will never return to Zion?" "If Brack doesn't save you, do you think Zion would welcome you back?" She smiled. "I'll get to lay these words out, but I assure you that Brack will save me, and you will never have me give up my city of Zion." He smiled and brought his wine to drink. "We shall see about that." The fear of what Hayden said filled her thoughts as she lay that night in the small room, as a fire burned before her. Her hands were sore, and her legs were tingling from a day's work, but all that seemed to dull in the fear of not being rescued. It had been at least 5 days now since she had been taken, and not one word had come through messenger from Zion. Perhaps she was just a title to Zion through name, and if not present, a new woman would take place quickly. She sat up, fear riding in her, as she thought about the future and the life she knew. What if Zion had been as evil as Hayden said it was? One look at Eleanor's daughter, and it broke her heart, seeing the empty, hollow eyes of what she had to endure and still have to live through. Her people had done that to her, and at first Lilac thought Hayden a fool to say such words, but seeing the girl in person, she knew right away you cannot fake such pain. She put her hands together and said a silent prayer for escape. She needed to return home.
Went down crashing in my own bed. There ain't no words when you're sleeping with shame. All out and yet still wide awake. There ain't no prayer when you're sleeping on nails. When words fail you and all that you can do is look away. Yeah, and the image in my mind is burning each other down. It's pain. If you could only say it's you, always you. And baby, I'm sorry too. I twist and I turn, babe, I'm lost to my core. I'm nothing alone, it's you I adore. Please say it's you, always you.
My king! A message arrives, Juno said as Hayden descended the stairs. He had hoped nothing would come, but now Zion was proving him wrong. He caught the small note that Juno carried and opened it. Then he lowered it and turned to the servant beside him. Bring Lilac here. The servant bowed and immediately left as he and Juno walked to the study hall together. My king, what news? Juno asked. Zion is what my whole heart thought it to be. He looked up as Lilac entered, her hands wrapped in white cloth, and her arms full of scratches. Concern edged his heart as she tried to remain calm in front of him. What happened? He asked. Nothing of your concern. Why have you summoned me here? She asked bravely. Fine. If she was going to act brave, he would let her. He held up the letter in his hand and replied, Word from Zion. Her face broke into a smile. As I told you, my place as Duchess is important to my people. You speak such happy words, and you have yet to hear me say what is written here. Her smile faded, and she walked forward. Tell me, then. You may not believe me. Here. He offered it to her, and she quickly came to take it. She opened it, and then she shot her head back up to him, her eyes full of anger and hate. She tossed the letter at him. Lies! What man did you pay with heavy coins to fake such a letter? She cried. I need not pay anyone, Lilac. Besides, the authentic stamp of the Duke himself is on that letter. You must have said something to them. The only word I sent Juno to send to them was to have their men back away 40 meters from my city lines. I never asked them to gift you to me. Tears swam in her eyes, and she lowered herself to the ground. Hayden turned to Juno and gestured him out. Once the man had walked out, leaving them in silence, he walked to her and bent down, touching the bandaged hands. It looked like burn marks, and she pulled her hand away from him. Do not pretend to care. You are rooting with laughter right now that the city of Zion has given up on their Duchess, aren't you? They merely do not care to start a war for me, so they honor you, their greatest enemy, with their own Duchess. Hayden let out a breath. I have known your Zion city for decades, Lilac. I have tried negotiating with them on countless matters, but in the end, it always ends the same way, through blood and sword. They do not care for their people, or the city that thrives. She sobbed. I am their Duchess. I was forced to marry the Duke. How could they not care enough to bring me home? She looked up at him. Does it please you to see that you were right? Shaking his head, he replied, It was never a battle to please me, Lilac. It was merely to open your eyes that perhaps what you thought you knew and what is the truth are two very different things. My own people, she whispered, turning their backs on me. What am I to do now? Silion is home to you now, Lilac. Accept my city, and it shall become a rich home to you. I am your slave. You need not be. Since Zion has gifted you to me, I should make you my bride. She shot her head up in surprise and horror. You wouldn't dare. Smiling, Hayden replied, Oh, I dare to, Lilac. When someone gifts me something as beautiful as you, why would I not take her into my bed? And to think you have been untouched is even better. Your city has lost a duchess, and I have gained a queen. You even got a promotion in status. I want to speak to Brack. I need to hear it from his own lips. Hayden nodded and walked to take a seat. I can have a message sent to him. If you meet him and the truth is what we see here on paper, what would you decide then? She lowered her face, and when she looked up again, she had a small hint of sadness. I want to be returned to my parents. It is not as if I am an orphan. He smiled and leaned back in his seat. Once the message arrives of your meeting, I shall let you decide what to do of yourself. Until then, you shall remain where you are, and duties are given to you as before. The field where they were to meet Brack was covered with little grass and more sand than anything. Lilac felt her heart race, and she sat on a horse with Hayden and his men at arms. It had felt like an entire afternoon had gone by before they heard the sound of horse hoofs. A carriage was arriving with over hundreds of men at arms, and the man in the front was none other than Brack himself. Lilac felt her heart sink as she realized that her own husband had made the trip as well. If he was what she had to return to, she wanted to lay on the earth and shrivel away. They stopped 3 feet away, and the men at arms opened the curtains to the carriage, and the Duke came out, shaking like a small leaf, as they helped him onto a horse and they began riding out. Stay here, Hayden said as he guided both her and his own horse out. When they arrived in the middle, she noticed that her husband's eyes were even wider than before. It seemed he had gone completely blind since she'd been gone. Duke, Hayden said, getting the man's attention. How do you make of my city? He smiled and replied, As smelly as the man himself. Are you speaking of yourself? Hayden asked. Watch your tongue, Brack yelled. We are here at your demand. Make your requests. Hayden turned to her and nodded. She turned to look at Brack, who was ignoring her glare. Lord Brack. The man adjusted his eyes and gave her a dirty look. Am I to be left behind as your duchess? I hoped you were here with men to rescue me, to return to Zion City. Brack smiled and replied, Duchess? What duchess? You are no longer the Duchess of Zion, not since you were taken from the city walls. Any woman who is now seized as theirs is no longer clean. Why would we, Zion, want you back as our duchess? This shocked her, and she raised her voice when she next spoke. You belittle me! How dare you? It was you who took me from the safety of my own home to grant me to this blind duke. And now that I'm hostage of our enemy, you leave me to die? Duchess or not, I am still a daughter of Zion. You are no longer Zion, her husband's low voice said. The little bastard in your belly shall not belong to me either. Once born, you shall murder it and never have it bear my blood. Anger fumed her as she laughed. You fool! You honestly thought you betted me, didn't you? I sit here still a virgin as the day I was born from my mother's womb. Brack steadied the horse as the Duke yelled out in anger. The action caused the horse to shriek and stand on his hinged legs as the Duke lost balance and fell off. The sound of his head cracking sent Brack jumping from his horse and running to him. Upon inspection, he stood, and then to Lilac's horror, uttered the words that made her realize how blind she'd been of her own Zion City. You sea lion people murdered our Duke. Hayden leaned forward. Now, what proof do you have? This is an honest meeting between us. There are many eyes here to witness that the Duke fell to his own death. Do not put this blame on my people. You murdered our Duke, Brack yelled. War is coming to you and your city. You lie, Lilac cried, but Hayden held her back as Brack picked up the Duke's lifeless body and galloped away. Once they were out of earshot, she ripped her arm from his hold. How can you stand there and let him get away with it? She asked. I am not letting him get away with anything. If he so wants to put the Duke's death on my people, I am going to prepare myself. She sucked in a deep breath. I have been blind. Zion has never loved me. It only wanted me when it had an advantage to me. Hayden smiled and touched her arm. What does this mean? She held her head higher and she replied, This means I accept position as your queen. Hayden smiled and offered her his hand. Is this the truth of what your heart speaks? Or is this anger that is talking to me right now? Tears filled her eyes. I cannot even begin to think how much I have loved Zion, only to be turned away from this. You were right. Zion is not a kind place, and today I shall stand place with you. This is not anger speaking. This is hate.
Deep end, we're alive, living life underwater. Let's spend all we've got getting buzzed. You pretend you're a god, I believe I'm a soldier. We play hide and seek till you draw. Love ain't got nothing on me, bad boy. Running, I'll catch you on my own, boy. No, love ain't got nothing on me, bad boy.
War was not something Lilac had seen before, nor was it something she wanted to boast about. But since meeting Brack, the war drums had been pounding along with soldiers getting ready to defend the city walls. Hayden had not announced to the city of Silion who she was, but she had been gifted her own chamber from the servant room she had slept in. Hayden also appointed a servant to her for personal use. One evening, while returning to her chamber after a long day's work of gardening, she found Eleanor waiting for her outside her door. She dismissed her servant and walked to the woman who had dark eyes but a hidden emotion she knew nothing about. "Eleanor, what brings you here to my chambers?" she asked. "Is it true that you are about to be crowned as queen?" This came as a shock to her. She lowered her gaze. "I don't know. I have been watching you," Eleanor whispered. "I heard what your own people did to you too. How hurtful it must be to be forgotten in a city that is your enemy. I tell you, though we, the people of Silion, are not like Zion, we do not rape children or murder women. King Hayden makes sure that all prisoners are taken care of and fed equally well. It is only your Zion city that is cruel to heart." Tears filled Lilac's eyes. "It is no longer my Zion city. It turned its back on me when I needed it the most. I understand now what I did not understand back then. Perhaps if I had been more open-hearted and open-minded, I could have seen what was right beneath my nose." And then Lilac took a deep breath. "My heart aches for your daughter, and my entire soul goes to apologizing for what those men did. I know that it doesn't take away the pain." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, and she sobbed. "My darling little girl has been returned to me a broken soul. You know, she sleeps with a knife, and often I find her holding it in her hands that it cuts her flesh. She's covered in blood the next morning, but it's the only way how she can fight the demons in her dreams. They have invaded her privacy, both in body and mind. I cannot take that away, and I cannot give anything to help her heal. As a mother, it breaks my heart when I look at her and know that she would never have the chance to feel the love of a child created from her own womb." Lilac suddenly reached out and embraced the woman. "I'm sorry, Eleanor. I'm so, so sorry. I wish to take away her pain." Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 5 will be out shortly.
Red eyes, strobe lights moving across the walls. You're looking like a movie star, but I know just what you are. Seems like you're type to be on the floor. You're looking for a kind of queen, the baddest one you've ever seen. You're shining bright as crystal, moving